friends, and welcome to lovely downtown Westside, Saginaw, Michigan. And it is a lovely place with an awesome history, but there's a place in Michigan which has a history I think that stands out above all the rest, and that's of the Straits of Mackinac and Mackinac Island and Fort Mackinac, all right there in that same area. Now, if you like stories about the unusual, the paranormal, mythology, then this video is for you. I am going to share with you some in this video, again from the history of the Ottawa and Chippewa people, are Indians of Michigan. And I believe it was written in 1915. Don't quote me on that though, because I don't have it right in front of me to look at the copyright date. But at any rate, it's fascinating. It has mystery. There was a tribe of people there that was the last of their kind, or of their tribe, and it's just a really fascinating story. So I'm going to shut up because I'll just keep babbling if you let me, and let's take a look at some history behind and prehistory and I begin, quote, "Again, most every historian or analyst, so-called, who writes about the island of Mackinac and the straits of the vicinity tells us that the definition or the meaning of the word Michilimackinac in the Ottawa or Chippewa language is large turtle, derived from the word Michilimackinac in the Chippewa language. That is Michi, as one of the adjectives in the Ottawa and Chippewa languages, which would signify tremendous size, and Mackinac is the name of the mud turtle, meaning therefore monstrous large turtle, as the historians would have it. Now, it's interesting to note that the Mackinac Island is considered by many Chippewa and Ojibwe as like the Holy Land, because it was the physical dwelling place of Gitchimanitu, who was the creator spirit, and he is supposed to have dwelled on that island. And so that is all right. Now let me go back to the actual text here, and I may interrupt every now and then with some comment. But anyways, wherever those analysts or those who write about the island of Mackinac obtain their information as to the definition of the word Michilimackinac, Michilimackinac, you never say Michilimackinac because it ticks some people off. And so anyways, I don't know when our tradition is so direct and so clear with regard to the historical definition of that word, and is far from being derived from the word Michilimackinac, as the historians have told us. Our tradition says that when the island was first discovered by the Ottawa, which was sometime before America was known as an existing country by the white man, there was a small independent tribe, a remnant race of Indians who had occupied this island, who became confederated with the Ottawas, and when the Ottawa were living at Manitoulin, formerly called Ottawa Island, which is situated north of Lake Huron. The Ottawas thought a good deal of this unfortunate race of people, and as they were kind of interesting sort of people, but unfortunately they had most powerful enemies, and that's not a good thing even in ancient times, who every now and then would come among them to make war with them. Now, their enemies were of the Iroquois tribes of New York, and they could be fierce. Therefore, once in the dead of winter, while the Ottawa were having a great jubilee and war dance at their island, now Manitoulin, on account of the great conquest over the Winnebagos or Winnebagos of Wisconsin, of which I will speak more fully in subsequent chapters. During which time the Seneca of New York, of the Iroquois family of Indians, came upon the remnant race and fought them and almost entirely annihilated them, but two escaped to tell the story, and who effected their escape by hiding in one of the natural caves on the island, and therefore that was the end of this particular race. And according to our understanding, the tradition The tribal name of the disastrous people was, here we go, Mackinac, which is still existing to this day, which was in 1887 at the time of this writing, to this day as a monument of their former existence. For the Ottawa and Chippewas named this little island Mackinac for memorial sake of those their former Confederates. Which word is the locative case of the Indian noun Michilimackinac? Therefore, we contend this is properly with where the name of Michilimackinac originated. This is the earliest possible history of that little island, as I have related, according to the Ottawa traditions, and from that time forward, there have been many changes in the history as other tribes of Indians took possession of the island, such as the Hurons and the Chippewas, and still later by the white, French, English, and Americans, and numbers of battles have been fought from this time to time there by both Indians and whites, of which I need not relate, as other historians have already given as accounts of them. But only this I would relate because I have never yet seen the account of it. It is related in our tradition that at the time when the Chippewa occupied the island, they ceded it to the United States government and reserved a strip of land all around the island as far as the stone throw from the water's edge as their encampment grounds when they might come to the island to trade or for other business, or perhaps religious or spiritual ceremonies. Perhaps the listener would like to know what became of those two persons who escaped from the lamented tribe, the Michilimackinacs. I'm doing the best I can with these words. I will here give it just as it is related in our tradition, although this may be considered at this age as a fictitious story. But every Ottawa and Chippewa to this day believes it to be positively so. It is related that the two persons escaped were two young people, a male and a female, and they were lovers. After everything got quieted down, they fixed their snowshoes, and inverted and crossed the lake on the ice, as snow was quite deep on the ice, and they went towards the north shore of Lake Huron. Now, the object of inverting their snowshoes was that in case any person should happen to come across their tracks on the ice, their tracks would appear as if to be going towards the island. They became so disgusted with human nature, it is related that they shunned every mortal being and just lived by themselves, selecting the wildest part of the country to live in. Therefore, the Ottawa and Chippewas called them Pagwa Ticha Nish Naboy. Okay. The last time they were seen by the Ottawa, they had 10 children, all boys and all living and well. And every Ottawa and Chippewa believes to this day that they are still in existence and roaming in the wildest parts of the land, but as supernatural beings. That is, they can be seen or unseen just as they see fit to be. And sometimes they simply manifested themselves as being present by throwing a club or a stone at a person walking in a solitude, or by striking a dog belonging to the person walking, and sometimes by throwing a club at the lodge, night or day, or hearing their footsteps walking around the wigwam when the Indians would be camping out in an unsettled part of the country, and the dogs would bark just as they would bark at any strange person approaching the door. And sometimes they would be tracked on snow by hunters as if followed on their track. However, recently past, they never could be overtaken. Sometimes, when an Indian would be hunting or walking in solitude, he would suddenly be seized with an unearthly fright, terribly awestricken, apprehending some great evil in store. He feels very peculiar, sensations from head to foot, the hair on his head standing and feeling stiff like a porcupine's quill. He feels almost benumbed with fright, and yet he does not know what it is, and looking in every direction to see something, but nothing to be seen, which might cause the sensation of terror. He would then say, "Pshaw, it is nothing here, there's nothing here to be afraid of. It's nobody else but Pagwa Tachwa Nish Naboy is approaching me. Perhaps he wanted something of me." And they would then leave something on their tracks, tobacco powder or something else as an offering, peace offering. Once in a great while, they would appear and approach the person to talk with him. And in this case, it is said, they would always begin with the sad story of their great catastrophe on the island of Mackinac. And whoever would be so fortunate as to meet and see them and to talk with them, such person would always become a prophet to his people, either Ottawa or Chippewa. Therefore, Ottawas and Chippewas called these supernatural beings Pagwatish Naboy, which is strictly meaning wild, roaming, supernatural being. I could see people still believing that. Let's cross that last part of it. Pine River Country in Charlevoix, Michigan, when this country was all wild, especially near Pine Lake, was once considered as the most famous resort of these kinds of unnatural beings. I was once conversing with one of the first white settlers in that portion of the country, who settled near the place now called Boyne City, at the extreme end of the east arm of Pine Lake. And in the conversation, he told me that many times they had been frightened, particularly during the nights, by hearing what sounded like human footsteps around the outside of their cabins. And their dogs would be terrified, crouching at the doorway, snarling and growling, and sometimes fearfully barking. The dogs knew. When daylight came, the old man would go out in order to discover what it was, or if he could track anything around his cabin. But he never could discover a track of any kind. These remarkable, mischievous, audible, fanciful, appalling apprehensions were very frequent occurrence before any other inhabitants or settlers came near his place. But now they do not have much or such apprehensions since many settlers have come to the area. The massacre of Michilimackinac, sorry, by the Seneca Indians of New York happened probably more than 500 or 600 years ago. That was in 1887. I could say much more, which would be contradictory of other writers of the history of the Indians in this country. Even in the history of the United States, I think there are some mistakes concerning the accounts of the Indians, particularly the accounts of our brave Tecumseh, as it is claimed that he was killed by a soldier named Johnson, upon whom they conferred the honor of having disposed of the dreaded Tecumseh. Even pictured out as being coming with his tomahawk to strike a man who was on horseback, but being instantly shot dead with the pistol. Now I have repeatedly heard our oldest Indians, both male and female, who were present at the defeat of the British and Indians, all tell a unanimous story saying that they came to a clearing, an opening spot, and it was there where Tecumseh ordered his warriors to rally and fight the Americans once more. And in this very spot, one of the American musket balls took effect in Tecumseh's leg so as to break the bone of his leg so that he could not stand up. He was sitting on the ground when he told his warriors to flee as well as they could, and furthermore said, "One of my legs is shot off, but leave me 1 or 2 guns loaded. I am going to have the last shot," he declared. "Be quick and go," he told them. That was the last word spoken by Tecumseh. As they looked back, they saw the soldiers thick as swarms of bees around where Tecumseh was sitting on the ground with his broken leg, and so they did not see him anymore. And therefore, we always believe that the Indians or Americans know not who made the fatal shot on Tecumseh's leg, or what the soldiers did with him when they came upon him as he was sitting on the ground. And that's the story I wanted to tell you tonight. I apologize profusely. I try the best I can with the Native American names. They're very difficult to pronounce, but by and large, I think I do pretty good. But there were a couple of long ones in here tonight that were not too easy for a mind as confused as mine. And I'm not really confused. Because one thing I know for certain, without being confused, I appreciate each and every one of you on the other side of that monitor, and I pray God's blessing upon you. And I pray you stay safe and healthy. And I will be back with you, as the good Lord willing, in another video very, very soon. All right. Have a great night. God bless you. Love you all.